1986, when a burst tyre robbed Nigel Mansell of the title, has the Formula One World Championship been decided at the 16th and last race of the series. But here today, down under in Adelaide, the city of churches, history repeats itself in a thrilling climax to an eventful year. On Adelaide's magnificent street circuit, the two men who have dominated the championship all year, Germany's Michael Schumacher and Britain's Damon Hill, start the Australian Grand Prix separated by only 1 point. And one of them must finish the day as the 1994 world champion after a year in which between them they've won 14 of the 15 races so far. With 8 wins and the lead in the championship, despite the loss of a massive 36 points because of exclusions, Schumacher has clearly established himself as the class of the field. But with his lead reduced to only 1 point, he's been under pressure in Adelaide against the might of the Williams team. In Friday's qualifying, he crashed his Benetton at over 100 miles an hour, and with it explosively disintegrating all round him, was very lucky to emerge absolutely unharmed and still second fastest on the grid.
I feel relaxed and optimistic, particularly as the situation is right now with me being in the first row and him just in the second row.
And if you win on Sunday, you'll be a new King of Germany, the first one.
We talk about this on Sunday evening.
Damon Hill is under even greater pressure than Schumacher. He's not only that single point behind in the championship, but has made things even more difficult for himself by bitterly complaining about his contractual conditions and alleged lack of support from his team principals. Now the pressure's intensified, with Damon behind Schumacher on the grid, plus the embarrassment of going off twice on Saturday and seeing his Williams craned off the circuit.
All I have to do is get past Michael. I mean, the best time to do it would be during a pit stop. We don't know how many stops people are going to be making, but you know, tactically it's going to be very, very interesting.
No pressure on Nigel Mansell, though. Uninvolved in the championship after racing all season in America, he can drive his own race in support of Hill without having to worry about the points. Yet to win a Grand Prix in Australia, he's been in superb form in Adelaide, right back in his 1992 World Champion form, superbly to outdrive all the young guns and take his 32nd pole position ahead of Schumacher at the start. So now the showdown for 1994, the championship decider. Row 1 of the grid, Mansell and Schumacher. That's good for Schumacher. Row 2, Hill and Häkkinen, and that's bad for Damon. Both the Jordan Hart cars on row 3, Rubens Barrichello and Eddie Irvine. 7th is Johnny Herbert's Benetton, ahead of Jean Alesi's Ferrari. Row 5, Brundle's McLaren and Frentzen Sauber, with Gerhard Berger's Ferrari a lowly 11th. The Tyrrell Yamahas of Mark Blundell and Ukyo Katayama are 13th and 15th. 20th for only his second Grand Prix, Frenchman Frank Lagorce in his Ligier heads Lotus newcomer Mika Salo from Finland and Japan's Hideki Noda. Australian David Brabham starts his home Grand Prix 24th, and on the last row for his first Grand Prix, Jean-Denis Delatrez with Domenico Schiattarella. And in some 2 hours' time, there'll be a new world champion. Australia is go! Mansell slides away. We're with Häkkinen, Damon Hill on the left. Schumacher leads. Schumacher leads at the first corner. Damon Hill has gone ahead of Nigel Mansell as they go round. Are they all going to get through the chicane? No, Christian Fittipaldi goes over the curb, but mercifully everybody is through the first complex of corners, and Michael Schumacher is leading and already pulling away as Mansell goes off the course and loses at least 2 places. Sean Alesi right up behind him. Mika Häkkinen has passed. There is Damon Hill second. Häkkinen is third. Barrichello is fourth, and Nigel Mansell is down to 5th position. A misjudgment there. Now this is exactly what Michael Schumacher wants. He's got a clear track in front of him. He's got the nimble, powerful, perfectly balanced Benetton at his command. Behind him, He can see his rival. This is a perfect scenario because the two World Championship leaders are leading on the first lap. Mika Häkkinen is in third place. Barrichello is fourth. Mansell is fifth. Alesi is sixth. Irvine is seventh. Brundle is eighth. Johnny Herbert is in ninth position.
And a great start there, a nice clean start, but a classic start from Michael Schumacher. We're looking at him now. Schumacher getting away with minimum wheel spin. Let's have a look. Here we are on the right to the front. Schumacher. Mansell gets too much wheel spin, has to lift off. Schumacher comes by. Hill has a look on the inside of Mansell, and in fact, Hill very nearly comes through on the inside. In fact, does come through on the inside. Now we see that he was too tight. He lost a lot of ground there. That let Mansell close up. And we didn't sadly see what happened to Mansell, but it looked like through the Wakefield corners he made a mistake, and that's Mansell going by there. Barrichello, Mansell coming up the inside there, and Barrichello having another look round on the outside. He lost ground. As Mansell came up the inside, he braked a bit too late, and that let Barrichello through. Now, this is a big blow to Nigel Mansell, because it was my belief that Mansell has got a light fuel load, and that should have enabled him to really go for it, and he needed to be right at the front and stay at the front to do that. And I think Mansell there made a mistake on those Wakefield corners on lap one, got wide.
And up at the front there is sensation because Damon Hill is closing on Michael Schumacher, no doubt about that, as we ride with Nigel Mansell chasing Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan Hart. The young Brazilian, the man who took pole position in the Belgian Grand Prix, is driving another superb race. They're coming up now towards the Markets turn. That's the Markets on the left, down the long straight, and Schumacher leads. Damon Hill is in second position. The fastest lap is by Damon Hill. You saw the time, and that means that the Englishman has got the bit between his teeth now. He knows that the only man that he really needs to worry about in this race, Michael Schumacher, is the man who is ahead of him as they come out of the final hairpin. Now let's see what the gap is as Schumacher crosses the line to start his third lap. Damon Hill is 0.3 of a second behind him, and an enormous gap now building before Mika Häkkinen goes through.
Now, the big question for Damon Hill now that he's going to be trying to work out is how much fuel is Michael Schumacher running. If Michael Schumacher is running through to his form throughout the year, that means he'll be running 1/4 of a tank, making 3 stops, and that means that he should be quicker. And if Damon Hill can keep up, as he really is doing with Michael Schumacher at this stage, with Schumacher making his normal 3 stops, when I'm sure Damon will make 2, that's good news for Damon Hill. But I suspected at the start of this race that Schumacher was going to run a conservative, a different strategy, making just 2 stops, and that means that what we are seeing here is both these drivers, if I'm right, working on the same fuel stop strategy.
That's Mika Häkkinen in third position. In fifth position is still Nigel Mansell, who does not seem to be able to get past. There he is, Nigel Mansell chasing Rubens Barrichello for fourth position. And behind the top 6 with Alesi in 6th position, Martin Brundle in the second McLaren Peugeot is in 8th place. Mark Blundell in the Tyrrell Yamaha is 12th. And frankly, a disappointing Johnny Herbert, who has not shone at all in practice and seems, I'm sorry to say, to be joining the Jos Verstappen and JJ Lehto club in not being able to keep up with his team leader, Michael Schumacher. Johnny Herbert is down in 15th position. And I am absolutely delighted, as I'm sure fans are all around the world, to see that the World Championship is being fought out by the 2 top men at the front of the Australian Grand Prix.
Yes, and they are well ahead of third place man Mika Häkkinen, who's now some nearly 17 seconds behind after just 10 laps. And it makes me wonder, in fact, whether or not Schumacher and Hill are not both going to run a 3-stop strategy, and that's why they are relatively so much quicker than Häkkinen, who, after all, in qualifying was only 1/10 of a second away from Damon Hill there. Now, if they are doing that, then we shall find out in the next, about the next 6 or 7 laps, I think. That's when I would expect to see them coming in. But one thing I really am pretty confident on is that Schumacher and Hill are running the same kind of routine there.
And on goes Mark Blundell. Mark Blundell has done it again. The Englishman in the Tyrrell Yamaha that we have seen spin off circuits so much this year did the same there. It's not too difficult to do, of course, because the drivers here today are on the razor's edge between staying on the track with adhesion and flying off it into the wall.
And we've got Johnny Herbert's come into the pits in his Benetton there. It looks like a mechanical problem for Herbert. Certainly his performance has been rather lackluster, and that hopefully is something to do with the car.
Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill, keeping up the pace, are pulling away from Mika Häkkinen as you watch Nigel Mansell, who has now got ahead of Rubens Barrichello. So Mansell is up into 4th place and he's pulling away. Now you can see this is an indication of the fact, as he closes up on Mika Häkkinen, who is in 3rd place, that once you get past the car, if you're a faster driver who has been held up, you can then streak away, which is what Mansell is doing. He's leaving Barrichello, who is now 5th. He's leaving Jean Alesi, who is now 6th. And they're ahead of Eddie Irvine. And in the pits is Christian Fittipaldi's footwork forward. And off slides the Eddie Irvine with smoke pouring up from the edge. I suspect something's locked up and that Eddie Irvine is out of the race. Yes, he is. That's the 2nd retirement of the day.
And Alesi does indeed come in for his first pit stop.
From 6th position in the Ferrari, now we can see how long a pit stop is taking. It's a very short pit lane here, straight off the track, straight into the track. It's not a long drag-in like it was at Suzuka. 6.4 seconds for Jean Alesi.
And looking at the pace again of Schumacher and Hill, they are pulling away 28 seconds from Häkkinen now, and this must surely look towards running a 3-stop strategy for Hill and Schumacher, which means that they too should be coming in the next 2 or 3 laps. And there he is, Schumacher in.
Schumacher into the pit lane now. What about Damon Hill? Yes, they're coming in together. This is terrific excitement. Now it is down to the pit crews, and usually Benetton are faster than Williams. Williams protested to me about that when I said so after Japan, but let's see now. There's Damon Hill, and already Schumacher is out. Damon Hill comes out after him. Well, they came in together, they go out together, so I take it all back. The Williams team were just as quick as the Benetton team. We're now into lap 19. 1 tyre change completed by the leaders. And Schumacher, Hill behind him. And the pressure is being maintained every inch of the way as we join Nigel Mansell now as he goes down to Brewery Bend and goes out of it at about 130 miles an hour, and Häkkinen runs wide. That will have helped Mansell just a little bit. They go down the Jack Brabham straight, and Mansell is going for it. Mansell is going for 3rd position. Mika Häkkinen locked up. Mansell does the same thing. Mika Häkkinen has to give way, but gets past Mansell again on the exit. Wow!
Absolutely fantastic. That's what you get when you get 2 of the hardest chargers in Formula 1 battling it out, breaking from 190 miles an hour right down to round about 40 miles an hour for that hairpin. We might see a replay of that, and what was interesting is that I could see smoke coming out of the right-hand front wheel of Häkkinen's McLaren. Even before that wheel had locked, it looked like the brakes were really working overtime, and indeed they were. And interesting that both these cars actually, let's have a look again. Look at that smoke on the inside. Mansell comes up the inside, but he can't stop. Häkkinen stop. Häkkinen gathers it together, gets on the power. They both power slide out, but Häkkinen's got the advantage.
Back again with Damon Hill as Schumacher tries to take Parnis, and Damon Hill is right up behind. Damon Hill going for the lead, but Schumacher's got the punch as he comes out of Paddock Bend. They are both driving superbly now. Watch the Benetton. It pulls away a bit on the approach to the 2nd gear Adelaide hairpin. Mass crowd here. They are absolutely wrapped with this race, and rightly so. Now the centre chicane. That's where Schumacher went off.
And what's worked out really well for these two, the strategy that they've adopted, making the 3 stops, is that they've pulled out enough of a lead over Mika Häkkinen. That was some 28 seconds that they both managed to come into the pits, have their fuel and tyres put on, get out of the pits and get out ahead of Häkkinen, so they still remain in, of course, in 1st and 2nd place. And there's Häkkinen, and he's having another go there. Big lock up there. I think he's got a brake problem.
Yes, Mansell goes through definitely this time, and Mika Häkkinen is not going to get it back. This is the battle for the World Championship on lap 22 out of 81 in Australia. The World Championship leader leads, and spin. That's Mimo Schiatarelli, who had rejoined the race, so he has not retired.
And it looks to me like Michael Schumacher is coming under increasing pressure here from Damon Hill. This really is great stuff. Now, what's going to be absolutely critical is the handling of back markers. We saw already with Noda, we saw earlier on this lap, how it really can make the difference.
And the race order on lap 23 out of 81, Michael Schumacher half a second ahead of Damon Hill second. Nigel Mansell is 18 seconds behind Hill in third place, so Williams are looking very good for the Constructors' Championship. We haven't mentioned that yet, and the gap between Williams and Benetton at the start of this race was only 5 points, and at the present moment, Damon Hill is on 6 points, Nigel Mansell is on 4 points, that is Damon Hill. Michael Schumacher is on 10 points.
And Alesi spins there, spins out of the race, surely.
Yes, no, Alesi manages to keep the engine, does not stall, but of course he will have lost the place, I think. No, he's kept the place ahead of Parnis, who is 10th. And another lap is completed at this terrific pace with Damon Hill hanging on, and he's got past the Lotus, as has of course Michael Schumacher. They're threading their way through the field now, and into the pits comes Martin Brundle, as again Damon Hill closes right up on the Benetton, and the Benetton is behind Christian Fittipaldi, who is 13th.
And this is a driver's nightmare for Schumacher. He's got a couple of dueling back markers in front of him. He's got the Minardi there of Martini together with Christian Fittipaldi, and both of these drivers will be too preoccupied, if he's unlucky, dealing with themselves rather than watching out with the battle there behind. And of course this is the championship battle, and for sure Schumacher's going to get held up through this section, as is Hill. This could provide the opportunity for Hill coming up to Wakefield Corners here.
Yes, because Martini and Fittipaldi are each having their own battle, but Schumacher goes past, Hill goes past. They both complimented the other runners after qualifying on how well they had been watching their mirrors, and Mansell is into the pits. Mansell into the pits from third position, 5 seconds ahead of Mika Häkkinen, who has just gone through up into third place. So Mansell has lost third position. He's lost fourth position because Barrichello has gone through. He's lost fifth position because Berger has gone through. Nigel Mansell, who came in third, exits the pit lane in 6th position on lap 27 out of 81, with Michael Schumacher leading Damon Hill by 0.4 of a second or so, because it's moving. And that's not 0.4 of a second. Look at it. That's Michael Schumacher. They've both got past the Minardi of Pierluigi Martini, and that is not 0.4 of a second. Now, down to the hairpin. This is the end of lap 27. Schumacher leads, Hill is second, Häkkinen is third. So it is Benetton, Williams, McLaren. And hats off to Mika Häkkinen and the McLaren team. He's driving a superb race. The Peugeot is definitely down on power compared with the Ford V8 Cosworth and the Renault in the Williams. And once again, Damon Hill has dropped back a little bit. He closed right up, but he's really harrying Schumacher. And the man under pressure here is Schumacher, because he's got Damon Hill all the time in his mirrors, and he knows he's only got that 1 point lead in the World Championship that he's got to protect and hopefully to increase. And Barrichello's gone into the pits, Häkkinen's gone into the pits. This is Olivier Parnis from 9th position. That is Mika Häkkinen in the McLaren, 2.5 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello, who has also come in, and he's somewhere down the pit lane. Out goes Mika Häkkinen. Now, is he ahead of Rubens Barrichello? I'm looking for the Brazilian in the Jordan Hart as I talk to you. And he's ahead. Rubens Barrichello has gone ahead of Mika Häkkinen into 5th position behind Nigel Mansell. What a race of changing fortunes. And behind them is Jean Alesi. So there are 5th, 6th and 7th. Barrichello, Häkkinen and Jean Alesi, Jordan, McLaren and Ferrari together on lap 29, going for it.
And Barrichello goes off. Barrichello goes wide, he has to lift, Häkkinen goes by, but it seemed to me that Häkkinen was a little bit slow in the early stages of this race here.
And Barrichello will have lost a bit of momentum, and Alesi is going for it now. Alesi is going through, and up to Häkkinen, and he's gone ahead of the McLaren, he's gone ahead of the Jordan, now the Ferrari, which has struggled behind those two. can use its superior grunt from the V12 engine to pull away from the lesser-powered, Peugeot-powered McLaren. Lap 30. Schumacher has increased his lead in traffic to 1.6 seconds over Damon Hill. Gerhard Berger is up into third place after pit stops ahead of Nigel Mansell. I don't think Gerhard Berger has been in. No, he hasn't. He always takes a long time to come in. He's probably on a one-stop strategy, so it's not totally meaningful. Now, is it going to be this lap that Gerhard Berger comes in for the car stop? Because we know that the Ferrari men are out there in their overalls and their flame-proof equipment, ready with the refueling rig, ready with 4 new tyres and wheels, and in comes Gerhard Berger. Now, he was 14 seconds ahead of Nigel Mansell. It's going to be quite a close-run thing before Nigel Mansell goes through, because it's a very short pit lane here, and Berger has come in. He's going to take about 9 or 10 seconds for this refueling stop, and Mansell has yet to go through. He's through. Now, look for Berger. It's going to be tremendously close for third position. Mansell is there. Mansell is through. Now, so he's got that much of a lead as you look for the red Ferrari of Gerhard Berger. There it is now in fourth position. And Gerhard with his teammate Alesi behind him in fifth position, and visually behind him is, of course, on comparatively cold tyres, whereas Alesi and Mansell are not.
That looks, Schumacher's off. Schumacher's lost time.
Yeah.
Hill goes by.
Oh, out goes Schumacher. The German is out of the Australian Grand Prix, and Damon Hill only has to keep going to be world champion of 1994, but can he keep going? Because he hit Schumacher's car, and if Damon Hill has to retire and you see smoke pouring off the wheel, that will mean that Schumacher will be world champion. What an incredible development. Schumacher gets underneath the protective barrier. Now, you can see Damon Hill's right front wheel is canting right over. He's got a puncture in the left. Front left.
Yes, and I think hopefully... No, he's bent his wishbone as well. We can see it on the onboard camera there. He's got a bent left front suspension. But what needs to happen now, clearly Schumacher is out. The question is, can they repair Hill's car? Can he get out? And can he get into the top 6 and get a point? Or get 2 points, in fact. He needs a 5th, but it's not looking good. We didn't see what happened. I'd like to see, here we are. Now, we are in the Wakefield. Schumacher turns into the left. He's turning into the left. He gets too sideways. He goes off. Schumacher's made the mistake. He hits the wall. He's damaged his own car. And then he comes back to the left. And then he blocks the inside on the right. Damon is coming in. Now, that's bad from Schumacher. Schumacher should have known his car was damaged. Damon had the line. I'm afraid that is a fundamental mistake, I believe, from Michael Schumacher at a real moment of crisis.
And there will be people, of course, who say, as we see this replay of Schumacher going into the wall, that was a desperate manoeuvre by Schumacher to stop Damon Hill winning the championship. Into the wall he goes. Now, the question is, can Damon Hill get in and have his car repaired? You see the front left wheel is locked up. Now, Nigel Mansell is going to go through in the lead, but he was 54 seconds behind the leaders. Damon obviously extremely worried. The question is, how long is it going to take them to repair whatever damage there was? You see, he's been in the pits for about 16 seconds now. And Mansell has gone through, Berger has gone through, Alesi has gone through, Hakkinen has gone through.
And Patrick Head there's looking at that left front wishbone, Hill shaking his head. He knows in his heart of hearts that it is all over. Now, here's some on board from Damon Hill. Let's have a look. We're into the Westfield bend. Now, let's look for Schumacher. Schumacher there has already had his moment. There he is, bouncing off the right-hand wall. Schumacher deflecting back. Schumacher going wide. Damon seeing him slow. Damon goes for the inside there, and now that really should have been. Now look at that. Schumacher cuts across, rides over the wheels. The left rear wheel of Schumacher hits Damon's left front. That should have been Damon's corner, even disregarding anything else in my book.
As Damon Hill retires from the Australian Grand Prix, and the 1994 World Championship has been won, a lot of people will say by default, by Michael Schumacher, as the Benetton team congratulate each other. They know that their man has won the World Championship, but he doesn't, because he's still stuck behind the wire. Well, an amazing development. Schumacher would not want to have won the World Championship that way, I am utterly sure. With a heartbroken Damon Hill watching the monitor, this is bitter gall. He's won 6 races this year. If he could have just finished 2 points ahead of Michael Schumacher, he would have been world champion in only his second full season of Grand Prix racing. Michael Schumacher, scarcely able to believe his luck, is, I think, unashamedly weeping tears of joy and happiness at the knowledge that after a very grueling season, when his team has been accused of cheating, has won the World Championship. And meantime, Jean Alesi is in the pits.
And Alesi has stalled there. That's what happened. They're trying to restart the car. Let's just hope this is not a repeat of the Italian Grand Prix Monza incident when he lost all drive. But I really think this is, in some ways, it's a very, very sad occasion here today. But what a shame that it could not have gone the way it should have done, with Damon looking so strong, with Schumacher still just ahead all the way to the flag.
But now it's Nigel Mansell carving his way through the field with a lead of 2 seconds over Gerhard Berger. This astonishing race may have already resolved the World Championship of 1994, but the battle for leadership is far from over, because Gerhard Berger, who has already won in Australia twice, because he won in 1987 for Ferrari, his current team, and he won in 1992 for McLaren in his last year with the Woking team, is pressing hard on Nigel Mansell. And Gerhard Berger said to me yesterday, I've won 1 Grand Prix this year. There's Michael Schumacher on the back of a motorcycle, being taken back for a very joyous reception at Benetton, absolutely no doubt at all. But Gerhard Berger said to me yesterday, I've won 1 Grand Prix this year. I was hoping to win 2. I'm full of praise for what Ferrari have done this season, because the new Ferrari team manager, Jean Todt, has dragged it back from the abyss to a race-winning situation. And look at the crush here as he makes his way back to the pit lane and embraces his mechanics. Well, it can't be. In the background is Pat Simmons, who has done so much too. Well, he's being lifted up by Schumacher now. And in the background still is Jim Brett, who is the Cosworth engineer that's done so much to bring on the Ford V8 Cosworth engine, which has powered the Benetton team. But I, without wishing to be unkind, don't think that Michael Schumacher will be as entitled to be as overjoyed about winning the World Championship the way he has, as he would have been if he'd been able to make a clean fight of it right to the end. It was his mistake that took him off the circuit. Damon Hill slowed down well clear of him. The German turned in on Hill and bent the Williams wishbone in such a way that it was unrepairable and couldn't be changed in the time that would make any difference. But racing is racing, Formula One is Formula One, and Michael Schumacher is the world champion of 1994.
And back to the racing, and Rubens Barrichello is the man who's flying at the moment. He's now close to within 1.5 seconds of Mika Hakkinen. We're not looking at him. There's Mansell, and behind Mansell, of course, is Berger, but now having dropped back to 2.4 seconds. So it'd be nice to see what's going on with Barrichello, particularly as he gets closer, although sadly Martin Brundle has dropped back to 6 seconds behind Barrichello. But ahead of Mansell, on the track at least, is Ferrari teammate of Berger, Jean Alesi, so I'm sure there'll be a little bit of a concern as to if Mansell and Berger come up to lap Alesi or get close to him, as to the level of cooperation that we might see from Mansell from Alesi.
Well, it's a long time since Nigel Mansell won a Grand Prix. Of course, he did not compete in 1993, and he's only competed in 4 races this year.
There is Jordan come into the pits, and that is Barrichello into the pits for his second pit stop. Now, this is critical, because what's tended to happen before is that when McLaren have brought Hakkinen in for his pit stops, they tended to make an advantage in that situation. So it's going to be important for Jordan to try and counter that, to try and get out, because this is where races are often won or lost in terms of the time spent in the pits.
Nigel Mansell's last win was in Portugal in 1992, so he's missed the whole of the 93 season and the 94 in terms of victories. Then the on-car camera, that of Rubens Barrichello, shows you exactly what the course is like from just above the ground. That is the Market's Turn. Now we're into Brewery Bend. That's the Jones Straight we're going down now in 5th gear at 160 miles an hour, named after Australian world champion of 1980, Alan Jones. Now 3 times world champion, the Sir Jack Brabham Straight, 185 miles an hour for Rubens Barrichello, down into 2nd gear for the Decaturville hairpin for 40 miles an hour.
So Nigel Mansell leading lap 51, and I would expect Mansell to come in for his 2nd and final pit stop within the next 3 laps. Around about 3 laps time, lap 54 is when it should well be, with I would think Gerhard Berger being a bit later, maybe 3 laps later for his 2nd pit stop. Bear in mind that his 1st stop was that much later too. There is Rubens Barrichello again, and currently back in 5th position. But there's one slight question mark, and that's whether or not Berger is indeed going to have to come in for a 2nd stop. But looking at his pace, looking at the length of fuel stop, I really cannot see that he can continue until the end.
Past the hospitality boxes goes Barrichello. We're on lap 52. Race order on lap 52. Mansell leads, Berger 2nd, Hakkinen 3rd. Williams leads Ferrari, leads McLaren. And into the pits comes the McLaren of Martin Brundle from 4th position. He was leading Rubens Barrichello in 5th place by 12 seconds. So Barrichello should just go through. He's gone through. Rubens Barrichello has gone up into 4th place. Parnis has not gone through. He's just going through now. Martin Brundle may join the track. Yes, he has. Martin Brundle has just managed to rejoin the track in 5th position, ahead of the Ligier Renault of Olivier Parnis. And Martin Brundle must be desperately hoping and praying that he gets through this race without breaking down. He's done it 9 times in the 15 races that have already been held. And in spite of that, he's in 8th position in the World Championship with 12 points.
And that's the next man who must surely come into the pits. Mika Hakkinen there is yet to make his 2nd stop. And what's going to be critical for Mika is to make it a quick, slick stop to get out ahead of Rubens Barrichello. Barrichello got to within 2.5 seconds. We're riding now with Hakkinen, and 4th gear at this point, 120 miles an hour, down to 3rd at about 80, punching up again. Acceleration is blinding on these cars, 160 miles an hour now, and down to 4th gear, flicking through 125 miles an hour, just kissing the curb. Down the main straight, 185 miles an hour. And it could well be at the end of this lap when Hakkinen will come in. They'll want to make sure that they get, and that's Mansell coming in.
Yes, lap 54. Nigel Mansell comes in, and Lacey has gone through. Now Gerhard Berger will be taking the lead and has done so. And Nigel Mansell rolls up to his pit, and he's going to be starting this lap when he gets out, I should think, about 20 seconds behind Gerhard Berger, who's in the lead. Now Mika Hakkinen has still not got through. Nigel Mansell is going to rejoin in 2nd place and has done so, and the gap is 15.3 seconds. And there is the McLaren of Mika Hakkinen from 3rd position. Rubens Barrichello has gone up to 4th position as Mika Hakkinen streaks out of the pit lane.
And that's Barrichello, a 10-second penalty there for Rubens Barrichello. That means he'll need to come in and come back into the pits and have what we call a stop-go penalty, and that's going to lose him further time. Already Hakkinen was out of the pits well before Barrichello even got around the hairpin before the pit lane.
And I'm just racking my brains to think why Barrichello may have had a 10-second penalty. Well, it's for speeding in the pit lane, that's it.
Now what we need to see is when this man, Gerhard Berger, is going to pit, if he's going to pit. I'm sure he is, and it may well be on this lap. If it's not this, then it surely must be the next. And then when he comes out, we've got to watch the gap between Mansell and Berger, because it was a mere 2 seconds before, and that's the kind of gap that can be completely overcome. It's not this lap, Berger goes by, but it must surely be the next lap. And 2 seconds, as we were saying, is the kind of gap that can be completely overcome by variation in pit stop technique, and the combination of putting in that 70-80 litres of fuel, changing all 4 tyres, all of that taking 7 or 8 seconds. There is a lot of room for mistakes to be made, and that could well cause the the lead to be lost for Mansell if Berger can make a quicker, slicker pit stop. But the one on Mansell's part didn't look bad, it has to be said.
He's got to go round the long left-handed paddock bend up to the slight right sweeper before the second gear Adelaide hairpin down to 45 miles an hour. Is he going to turn in? Yes! Gerhard Berger comes into the pits, and this is where the lead in the Australian Grand Prix could change. You see, the Ferrari is quite a long way down the pit lane, and it's calling for pluperfect work now from the Ferrari team. They're very good at this. The seconds are ticking by, 7 seconds, plus whatever it took him to get in and get out. And I'm looking for Mansell. He's not yet gone through. There he is. Berger is back on the track. Mansell is now second still, but closer, 4.7 seconds. The gap has been reduced by that amount, and the battle is on.
And Rubens Barrichello coming in for his stop-go. This must surely be it, and he will have to come to a complete stop, and he will be then flagged away by the marshal at the appropriate time.
He was in 4th position. Martin Brundle goes through. There he is in the background. You just saw him go through to the centre chicane. So Barrichello has lost 4th position to Martin Brundle as a result of the penalty of 10 seconds for speeding in the pit lane, and Gerhard Berger and Nigel Mansell are fighting for victory in Australia. The World Championship may be over, but on lap 59 out of 81, with a lot still to go, a lot of excitement with us. The race is far from over. We're with Mansell now. Berger is staying ahead. If Ferrari can win this race, it would be a magnificent bonus for the Maranello concern after all the work that they have methodically and painstakingly been putting into developing that V12 powered car in 1994. They've turned the team around entirely. There's a new president, and Mika Häkkinen has got a penalty. Well, that'll be for the same reason, I'm sure. Speeding in the pit lane, it is. So Mika Häkkinen, now this is ironic, because Barrichello had a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, as a result of which Mika Häkkinen benefited, and he's running 3rd to Barrichello's 4th, and now exactly the opposite is happening. Häkkinen has got to come in for a 10-second stop. We're watching the Finnish driver, who is 3rd, but he won't be for very much long. Oh, yeah, he might be, actually, because he is some 16 seconds ahead of now Martin Brundle, because the McLarens are 3rd and 4th, and that, I think, is the best they have been this year yet. But now into the pits comes Jean Alesi from 6th position. My goodness, it's hard to keep up with this race. It's changing every lap of the distance. Berger leads, Mansell 2nd, Häkkinen 3rd, Brundle 4th, Barrichello 5th, Parney 6th, Frentzen 7th, and Mark Blundell 8th, as after a long pit stop, Jean Alesi, who was 9th, exits. He'll still be there because Fittipaldi in 10th position is a long way behind the Frenchman.
Well, that'll be a furious Jean Alesi there. He's making the last of his 3 stops. That should have been a mere 6.2 seconds. It was a lot longer. But Mansell goes through.
No, he doesn't, because Gerhard Berger just manages to close the door in time. And we're going to see a lot of that, because Nigel Mansell can see a Grand Prix victory in his return year to Formula One in front of him, and Gerhard Berger can see a 2nd win for Ferrari.
And Berger goes straight on. He gets unsighted by the Minardi, and Mansell is through.
Nigel Mansell leads in Australia again on lap 64, because Alboreto unsighted Gerhard Berger, who ran wide, managed to stop, and that's no mean achievement. And now Mansell attacking Alboreto, the veteran in the Minardi Ford. And here's a replay.
Here we are from Mansell's view. Look, he gets on that curve. Berger goes left of the exit curve. Mansell has the line. Mansell goes through to take the lead.
But it really does look as though Nigel... And that's off goes the McLaren! And that is Mika Häkkinen. So he's slid right out of the race. You can see the top of the chassis is off, exposing the master cylinders for the suspension, and that was just a straight slide off, it seemed to me. And that means, of course, now with Brundle in 3rd position, up to 4th position will go Rubens Barrichello. To 5th will go Parnis. To 6th and lapped will go Jean Alesi. It does look as though the 2 Ferraris are going to be in the top 6. There's a replay. That's what happened. The lost it on the right, spun into the wall on the left, and hopefully, although it was a very, very heavy impact, here's a replay, and it's on the approach to Brewery Bend, Stag turn.
Yes, this is where, coming down now, down the main Brabham Straight, into the hairpin. This is where you were seeing that dust come out of his right-hand wheel. He brakes hard, loses control, the car spins, the left-hand side gets damaged very seriously. I have to say, that is not a mistake by Mika Hakkinen, I don't think, fundamentally, although, because the real problem, I'm sure, was a brake problem with that McLaren car. But what a great win for Nigel Mansell. This is likely to be the Briton coming back with his 3 autumn races, really proving throughout the weekend that he's got a tremendous amount of pace. And Gerhard Berger also proving that there is little substitute for experience and maturity with pace combined. And Lacey pushing him hard there. And McLaren having a good result, great result, 3rd place, a win for Senna last year, and hopefully a 3rd for Martin Brundle at the end of 1994.
Thank heavens you said likely to be, Jonathan, because many a Grand Prix has been lost on the last lap, on which Nigel Mansell is now looking good for his 31st Grand Prix victory. Having won for Williams, having won for Ferrari, having come back to Grand Prix racing to drive in 4 of the 16 World Championship races this year, and it looks as though he's going to finish the last one in a victorious position, because he's well down the lap now, turning in and down the long straight. Less than half a lap to go now between this, the checkered flag, and his 31st win. I rode away from the circuit with him yesterday after he had confirmed pole position in the wet conditions. He took it in the dry on Friday, and he said to me laughingly, I bet that made a few people think, didn't it, who said I was too old? Well, it certainly did. This will make them think even more, because Nigel Mansell is almost home and dry to win the 1994 Australian Grand Prix, and Nigel Mansell wins in Australia. Fantastic! Gerhard Berger 2nd in the Ferrari, and Nigel, there it is, the master is back. And that is Martin Brundle, who's had a 2nd place this year. He's had a 4th, a 5th, a 6th, and now he's almost completed it because he's 3rd. The only position he hasn't finished in the top 6 is 1st. And McLaren and Peugeot can be very happy with the termination of their partnership, because theirs is one of the many chassis engine combinations that finish here in Australia today.
I thought that it was going to be difficult to pass him, because I'd done enough laps behind him to realise that there was very little between us, and all I could do was hope for maybe a moment in traffic and stuff. But I mean, when you see him go onto the grass and come back onto the track, you realise that could be the one time in the entire race when you've got a chance to get past, and I thought I had a good opportunity there. But looking back, I've seen the replay now after the race, and I realised that his car actually was damaged. And in hindsight, of course, if I'd stayed where I was, he would have been out. And I could be champion, but I don't want to spend too long thinking about things like that. I'm going to have to just come back next year and try and become world champion all again.
Now, it's easy to be philosophical when you're not the bloke involved, but as I said, you've got everything to be very, very proud about. And what about next year?
Well, we've got a good car on the drawing board, and Michael will have the Renault engines too, but I'm very much looking forward to it. I think that I'm a better driver now than I was this time last year, and I'm a better driver. I'm always getting better, and I think that I've got what it takes to become a champion, and I'll be starting off from that platform from the start of next year.
And what about now? Back to Georgie and the family, or having a bit of a rest?
No, I'm going straight back home, and I've got to see the children, because I haven't seen them for over 2 weeks, and I don't want them sort of walking off with some other daddy. I want them to make sure they remember me. Hello, Oliver, Joshua.
Well done.
That has been a tough season for us, and just now everything is finished. Last race, pressure till the last race, 1 point gap going into the race, leading the race, and now it's done. All the pressure just goes away, and you feel totally different suddenly, but you don't know how you really feel, and it's difficult to express my feelings in a moment. And There is so many emotions going on. It's just, I think probably tonight when we all together and have a party, it suddenly will just come out, and then I will maybe explode.
What about the accident? I mean, you lost it into the wall on the other side, and you were gone, were you?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I lost it over the bump. The car came sideways and hit a little bit the wall, and then by sudden the car felt very funny and out of control a bit. And the next I know is that I was in the air looking down to Damon, but I was already up in the air, and it was strange. Suddenly I was stuck in the wall. I wasn't sure if I'm gonna go and turn over, and I wasn't sure what is gonna happen to Damon. So it was a strange situation. I'd rather finish that race in first position and win it by this, but that's racing.
Well, from all your countless British fans, thank you for your courtesy and cheerfulness all season. You're a great champion.
Thank you very much. Nice to hear this from you. Thank you.
At the last race of an eventful season, a stunning comeback victory for Nigel Mansell to stake his claim for 1995 with fellow veterans Gerhard Berger and Martin Brundle, a very well-deserved second and third for Ferrari and McLaren in the Woking team's last race with Peugeot. Rubens Barrichello fourth, yet another points finish for the impressive Jordan team, whilst Olivier Panis takes his third points finish in his first Grand Prix season, with fifth place ahead of Ferrari's Jean Alesi. The world champion of 1994, well deserving the honour, is Germany's first ever, Michael Schumacher, by that single heartbreaking point from 6 times race winner Damon Hill, who accepted his defeat with characteristic dignity and generosity. No changes to the next 4 places. Third for Gerhard Berger, fourth for hard-charging Mika Häkkinen, fifth for Alesi puts Ferrari drivers in 2 of the top 5 places, with 22-year-old Rubens Barrichello a most impressive 6th in his second season. Williams deservedly clinched their 7th Constructors' World Championship to equal Lotus and McLaren, but still 1 behind Ferrari. Benetton takes second place, 15 points behind, ahead of the rejuvenated Ferrari team, followed by McLaren, Jordan and Tyrrell and Ligier tying for 6th. Australia ends a bittersweet 1994, but next year the new Formula One season starts next March in South America. Grand Prix will be there, but 1994 was Michael Schumacher's year.